Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition, it's, well, a special bootleg. It's Biohazard for the Famicom. So, Resident Evil, which of course is known as Biohazard in Japan, on the Famicom, aka the original NES. This is one of those really strange bootlegs that come out from time to time. I'm going to play through it on the easier difficulty, and I do end up using an exploit, which I honestly didn't know about until a few times of playing through the game. I discovered it, so I'm just going to go ahead and use it. More of this playthrough is just to kind of showcase this game, and just being a complete oddity in existence because of being most of the original Resident Evil, but on an NES cart, basically. You have a full menu system. You're only able to play as Jill. There is, of course, dialogue and stuff for some of the cutscenes, but it's all in, I think it's Chinese, but I could easily be wrong about that. The battle system, as you'll see right there, is pulled directly from Resident Evil Gaiden, which is a bit difficult to get the hang of, so if at all possible, I try to avoid fights, until I get the exploit at least, where I have pretty much infinite ammo, in which case then I can fire at will, basically, at the enemies. If you're very familiar with Resident Evil and decide to give this a shot, you'll have no problem at least being able to maneuver around, as it's pretty much exactly like Resident Evil 1. We're going to start off by going in here, and this would normally be where you would get the map located right here, and it's still located here. You don't have to like push a stool over or anything like that to get it. We're not going to go and really do anything in here, though. Instead, we're going to go up the staircase and head over to the right. You're able to move from door to door very easily because, of course, there's no door opening loading screens or anything like that. When it comes to combat in the game, your goal is to line up the attack as close as possible to the center. You'll see when you're doing a fight against any creature in the game that it kind of has like a little thing in the center of the bars, and it moves back and forth. You want to make sure that you hit it as close to that mark as possible in order to actually do damage to the creatures, and you have to do a certain amount of damage in order to defeat them. There's no indicator on exactly how much damage you're doing with each hit, and sometimes I'm able to easily get through a fight just with a knife, destroy them, no problem. And other times, they'll end up hitting me 2 or 3 times before I'm able to actually deal enough damage. So after going through the upstairs hallway, we're now out of that, and we went down the staircase to this save room. This is one of the 2 kind of main save rooms that I end up using a lot when playing through Resident Evil. There's a couple more in the mansion itself, but these are kind of like the 2 big safe rooms. And from here, what we're going to do is we're going to get all the items that are located here, of course also picking up the chemical, which is going to be needed in order to take out the plant in the other room. Head down this hallway. Now this one right here is the hallway that leads to one way, ends up leading to outside, that will lead to the guardhouse, and the opposite side of that, which is where I'm heading towards, will lead us to the portrait room, where you have the young to old paintings that you have to put in the correct order by hitting the buttons below each picture. And that's exactly how they're lined up here. All the puzzles are solved the same way as they would be in the original Resident Evil. Normally there's the one wall in the room that has all the portraits on it, but because of limitations they did an interesting thing of just having 2 walls that have portraits on each of them, and I ended up messing up the puzzle here. There's actually more puzzles on the top wall than there is on the bottom wall, and because of that it's a bit hard counting, but it's the same order that the portraits are in that game, so it's pretty easy to kind of figure it out and be able to solve it, in which case, of course, once you do, you'll end up getting that crest. If you mess it up, though, crows will attack you, just like they do in the original Resident Evil, so kind of it's funny, like there's this really slow-moving crow sprite that ends up coming at you, but it still ends up happening. Once we have that crest, we're going to head over here and head down into this room and back to the safe room. This way we can deposit that crest that I ended up getting. There's plenty of ammunition and other stuff in here, but I don't want to grab too much and have too much in my inventory. From where I am, I'm going to head up back to the staircase and head over to the right here, taking out this zombie first. Like I said, it can be difficult sometimes to actually take them out before they end up being able to hit you. Once we leave this hallway, we're going to be back at the top of the staircase from the opening hall. Head to the opposite side, which puts us above the dining room normally. There's a statue here, like normal, that you would push down to the bottom part, which will end up breaking to give us one of the gems. That is the same thing that we're going to do here, and end up pushing that down. We'll be going back down there later so we can actually pick up the gem. If you wanted to, technically, I guess you could walk around and grab it if you wanted to, but once we're in this room, we're working our way around. A couple of zombies are going to get in the way. There's really impossible to try to avoid all of them here, but take them out the best possible. Head down here. Now, we're right near that next safe room. We're not going in there quite yet, and we're going to work our way around the opposite side. And the room right down there is normally the room that contains the broken shotgun, though we don't have to deal with that in this version. The unfortunate part about the limitations is you don't get crushed by the ceiling trying to come down and killing you. Drop off the chemical before, of course, working your way around. Now we can grab the key item, which is the whole reason why we need to kill the plant that normally would be right here. And there's also plenty of herbage for you to pick up as well. All the herbs use the same sprite, even though they could have, of course, I assume, used color, but because of everything, unfortunately, it's hard to tell which one of the herbs is which color, unless you kind of know the language, or you kind of mark down which symbols end up equaling red, blue, or green. Really not that big of an issue, but when it comes to the blue herbs in particular is when it's a problem. Now this room right here, I just wanted to come in briefly and show it. That's the room that's the closet will open up with a zombie inside of it once you read the note. That's the famous, or infamous, itchy, tasty note was in that room. Now, when we come back out here, we have a lot of items in our inventory, as you can see. I'm going to work my way back around this way. Thankfully, because no door loading animations and stuff, like, it moves really quickly to kind of backtrack what would actually be kind of a longer way to get back. Go ahead and equip my gun real quick and have a little bit easier time if I'm able to aim it correctly and land some hits on this zombie before heading into this safe room. This is the safe room. The other big safe room has the serum in it that is for the snake bite when Richard ends up getting attacked by the snake and you meet him and you're supposed to run back and grab the serum in order to help him out. This is that safe room. Here you can grab the serum and actually grab it ahead of time. Normally you're unable to grab the serum until you meet Richard and deal with him for the first time and all that, but here you can actually grab it ahead of time, which ends up saving a little bit of time technically, so that's a nice little difference in this version that I actually like. Now with the inventory cleaned out a tiny bit, I can now come in here, I can grab that jewel from the broken statue, I can grab the correct shield, then go into the room which has the piano. Run up to the top where you can get the music sheet for the piano, and then use it on the piano. This is where Jill would normally play Moonlight Sonata, but limitations, of course, that's not happening here, so we have to just use it and then go into the room it opens up, exchange one shield for the other shield so that we don't get stuck in the room, and then head back over to the main dining hall and drop off the shield where we picked up the other shield. They look identical, so make sure you know which ones you're grabbing, putting back, and all that good stuff. But if you do it correctly, you'll end up with the other key that we needed here. Now head back into this hallway and work your way around. This is where we need to use the key, and we can use that in order to open up this room right here that contains some extra ammo. Nothing really else of importance, but that extra bit of ammo is always a good thing. It also, that's the room that contains the broken shotgun, normally as well. Put down any of the other items that you don't need to kind of make sure you have some space in your inventory. Normally, in a run, I'd be using handgun a lot more, avoiding zombies if at all possible, so I would get rid of the knife. But for this case, because knife is actually a little bit useful because of the Resident Evil Gaiden mechanics, it's not too bad to keep the knife on me. I'm going to run over here and open here. This is where the tiger statue is, where you can put the jewels in. Putting the one jewel in will get us one of the other crests that we need in order to work our way to the guardhouse. Once we have that kind of in our possession, I'm going to run back and put it away. I know a lot of item management here, but we're making some good progress so far thus in the mansion. Now, with some of those items in place, we're going to head in here. This is where Richard is, and have our dialogue sequence with Richard. After the whole dialogue, you can then use the serum on him in order to kind of get the next part of that whole scene. Now, Richard's taken care of. We're going to head into here and then head into the room where Yawn is normally located. Now, what you do here is instead of Yawn actually even coming out at us, instead he stays in his hole. There's a shining item in the hole, as you can see. We're going to equip the gun to make sure that we can battle him and then go in. It is actually a giant spider instead of Yawn, but this is the room that normally would end up containing Yawn, but for whatever reason, Yawn didn't quite make the cut. There's an extra bit of shotgun ammo, which is always useful in the room as well, but the key was getting the other crest that we needed. Either way, I don't know if you are able to somehow defeat the enemy without getting hurt, which I don't even know if it's possible not to get hit at least once during that fight, but either way, you end up passing out, and you end up in the room where Barry, normally it would be Barry that would have taken you here. And one of the benefits, actually, is that you end up getting fully healed after that Yawn encounter, if you were poisoned once leaving that Yawn encounter. Now head back past where the Yawn room was. Now we're going to go to where the statue room is. You can push easily the towers or pull whatever these things are. They're supposed to be those knight statues. Either way, that's where the crest is, which is the final of the crest that we need, and now we can actually head to the guardhouse. I'm going to run up here and go through this room, try to avoid these zombies, like I said. The hit potential on them is a bit big. Like, they can hit you and initiate a fight a lot of times from a pretty good distance, actually. Before I head to the guardhouse, though, I am going to stop in here and grab the shotgun. That's always very, very useful to have the shotgun, so I'm going to go ahead and grab that now. And now we have everything that's kind of absolutely needed. Like I said, unfortunately, you don't get the Jill sandwich encounter because of that, but... Now, up here, make sure that we change out the items that we don't need at this point, and as well as get out all of the crest so that we can put them all into the little thing outside of the door that leads to the guardhouse. With all the items in our possession, head on back through, head up here now, past where the portrait room was, and up to here. This is where Cerberus is encountered, which the Cerberus, the dogs, are extremely vicious in this version. They can maul your health down really quick, and they are hard to kill. I mean, they take a lot of shotgun ammo in order to actually defeat them. It's pretty vicious looking, too, like this whole, dog sprite, but as you can see, they just destroy health-wise, so you have to be really careful when it comes to the dogs. Drop off all the items into the thing right before the door, and once you do, you'll unlock the door. Out here is, of course, the herbage, some of which is a blue herb, but what we can do is use these herbs and combine some of them so that we're able to kind of get some of our health back. It is a bit of a pain here, of course, though, because there's those other Cerberuses here, so I'm going to use both of these items here, both of the sets of herbs, and that way I have full health. Over to the left is where the other elevator is located, but there is also the map here, if you need to use that. And try to carefully maneuver your way so you can just kind of edge your way up, and you can sometimes see the dogs ahead of time before they're able to kind of charge you, in which case you can kind of work around them, because like I said, these things are deadly, and if all possible, it's best to skip them. Unfortunately, when I went up, I quickly realized I forgot to grab the crank from in here, which is essential, so I had to run back real fast and grab that crank, and once again try to do my best to dodge the evil Cerberus zombie dogs here. Now up here, run over to the left side and use the crank, Once you do so, the screen will kind of transition over, and now you have the pathway you can walk up here. Addlers, the little mini tiny snakes, are here. They're an extreme annoyance because they can poison you, and poison is deadlier, I feel like, in here than it is in other versions, because it will drain your health and you will die. Like, randomly, if you get poisoned, you'll just drop dead in a handful of seconds. So you do have to be very careful when it comes to poison. Now, we're heading over to the left side here and heading over to where the guardhouse is. There's a bunch of herbs and stuff laying on the ground, as well as a Cerberus to kind of deal with here in this hallway. Try to do my best to watch out for both of them here if possible, but usually I end up getting hit by at least one of them. Once he's done, I'm going to head up into this room, and now we're in the guardhouse. The guardhouse is, of course, the second kind of dairy area of the original Resident Evil. It's the place that contains Plant 42, as well as the shark tank, where the vicious Neptunes are located. Just like in regular Resident Evil, we're going to move this statue over here and block up this hole so that we're unable to get hit from the tentacles of Plant 42. In here, right by the save box, is a first aid spray, which looks like a jar, just a random jar, which is the same jar sprite they use for the serum as well, but that's what the first aid sprays end up looking like in the game. Across the hallway from that, we're going to take out this zombie located in here, and at this point, the glitch, or exploit, or whatever you want to call it, for the shotgun has been initiated. Basically, as long as I don't put anything in my box that ends up de-equipping me, my shotgun will retain unlimited ammo. Now, it's a bit of an annoyance because this causes me not to be able to, like, put things away, like the knife or the handgun or the extra clip I have for the handgun, but it means I have infinite ammo, so that other little annoyance isn't so bad, because I'll just be able to blast through all the rest of the enemies with relatively no problem, and everything in the game can be pretty much killed with the shotgun, for the exception of the end of the game against the final boss. Now, in this room is the room with all the bees in it. Start off by grabbing the key and then quickly run away so the bees don't end up getting you. Then when we're going to head out of the room here and head up here and then use that key in order to unlock this room. Now, once in here, take out the zombie located here. As you'll see, my shotgun ammo ends up looping over now from 0 to 99. But even if I end up like de-equipping it or moving things or whatever, it will end up losing that 99 ammo. Just go back to what it was when I was using it prior to that thing ended up happening. Now we're heading down here, which is the location of the shark tank room, and you do still have to do the little puzzle where you have to push the blocks into the water so that you can form a nice little bridge that you'll be able to then run across. In the shark room itself, watch out as best as possible for the sharks, though if you run into one, you will have to fight it, which of course they will do a lot of damage if they do end up biting you. One thing you may have noticed is I accidentally forgot the key that I need in order to drain the water by going into the one room, so I do have to run back and grab that key. With that infinite shotgun, though, I can take out these sharks, no problem. That way I don't have to worry about them when I end up coming back, but yeah, unfortunately, I ended up making that mistake, so I ended up having to run back and grab that key, and then come back here. Once back into the safe room, I'm going to go ahead and put the one key away that I don't need anymore, switch it out for the other key that's located here. As you can see, they're very similar looking, but of course I didn't pay attention enough to the descriptions, or whatever, the lettering of each. But now I have the right items, including the other book that I need, and now it's time to head back and head down into the shark tank once again. Now, once in here, unfortunately, the sharks ended up respawning, which I didn't think was going to happen. I thought the sharks would stay dead, but whatever. I'm able to thankfully get around them, and then use the correct key this time, go in here and shut off the thing and drain all the water, so now all the sharks are taken care of anyway, so I don't have to worry about. The other room, of course, contains a whole bunch of extra items if you like to pick them up, but thankfully we should be pretty good at this point, especially with the shotgun that we have. And now time to head up and deal with Plant 42. Now, normally I would use like a grenade launcher with some good ammo in order to take out Plant 42, but thankfully pretty easy to take it out with the shotgun still in here. And I love the fact that when we enter the room for Plant 42, that he actually is like a giant tree sprite that they took from something else. I'm not sure what they took it from, but you'll only see it for a second, but it's a giant tree from something else. And it actually has its own like unique looking sprite, but it's very easy to take down with the shotgun. Just a handful of shots from it will end up defeating it. With it down, though, we end up getting another key, which is the key back for the main mansion, so now it's time to work our way back. Normally, there was a cutscene with Barry with the plant. He ends up saving us from it, as well as there's a scene with Wesker located in the guard ranch, but none of that ends up occurring here. Now, I don't need that one key with me anymore. The only key I do need is the one back for the mansion. Once I have my inventory set up, time to head back through the whole outside of the guardhouse and head back to the mansion itself, watching out for some Cerberus, if at all possible, while doing so. The worst part is the Adlers here for sure, because they can very easily poison me, and that's something I definitely don't want to have to deal with. That's why I'm always constantly checking after I walk over any of the little snakes in this game that I don't have any poison damage done to me. Now, once back in the mansion, this is when the hunters first show up, which can of course be pretty devastating damage-wise to you, so be very careful of them. The first one's waiting right as soon as you come down this hallway, and they look really kind of weird in the sprite, but they do, of course, significant damage. Use the key and open up this door, which is the office that ends up containing one of the two books that you need in the game. Checking it will, of course, locate the medal inside of it, and you need, of course, both medals, the eagle as well as the wolf medal, in order to get through and into the lab at the end of the game. Now, from where we were, we're going to head through here. This takes us back to this safe room over here. We're going to put the medal back away and then head back on out. Watch out for the hunter if possible, then head up the staircase and head to the room where we normally would end up doing battle with Yawn for the second time in the game. Located in the corner is an herb if you need it, and I'm going to go ahead and grab it just so I can replenish and get my health back up to fine status. This is the room, of course, that contains the second battle with Yawn, but that doesn't end up occurring here. When you low up to the hole, Barry ends up coming in. There's a short cutscene with him, and then you can interact with the hole again and drop on down. Now, this starts leading us into the basement of the mansion, and we have to deal with some zombies, and our goal is kind of to work around, and we're going to be going to the kitchen, through that, and up the elevator in order to get to the room that contains the battery. Unfortunately, I ended up going a little bit too far from where I needed to. I ended up going down an extra hallway. Obviously, everything kind of blends in this version, but I try to do my best to kind of keep track of where I need to go and where exactly I currently am. Head inside here. This is going to be two hunters waiting for us in this room. You want to run to the opposite side and enter into this room, which contains the battery that we need to pick up. Now, in this version, there is also the Mo disc that you can grab in order to save Chris as well during the final segment of the laboratory, but I don't end up doing that in this round. I'm not sure if you can actually get all four of them and if it will actually end up changing the ending of the game or not. Head back on through these hallways, and there is the dining room. You're going to go past the dining room and then head back into this hallway, where is the room right below us that ended up leading to what normally would be Yawn. There's the 2 hunters that have replaced the zombies. Thankfully, I'm able to get around a lot of these hunters here, so a little bit less battles that I have to do. Down here, watch out for this hunter, and head on down through. Now, this is the hallway that leads us back to the direction of the guardhouse. Thankfully, in this hallway, there is no enemies for us to deal with, no hunters or anything like that. And now we have to work our way around a little bit of the outside and get towards where we put in the battery and can activate the other elevator, which is normally going to have us come out from that left opening, which we looked at that elevator a little bit earlier on in the game. The Cerberuses are just as deadly as ever. In fact, they are maybe even more deadly than the hunters in this game because of the way they end up able to absorb just so much damage. Here, I'm going to do my best to try to avoid the Adlers if at all possible, work my way around. Unfortunately, though, I do end up getting poisoned, though there is some blue herbage down here to help me out. So I'm going to go run all the way over here to the left side, go back into this hallway, and use one of the blue herbs that's located here in order to make sure that I don't end up dying here. Once I find an actual blue herb, I've healed myself up with some green ones as well. Head on down here and use the battery in order to activate this elevator and head up. Once up here, watching out for all of those wonderful Cerberuses again. Use the crank on this switch to make the water rise again, which will allow us access to the waterfall and into the cave system. Thankfully, we don't have to go over the small little snakes again, but we do have to pass these dogs for the 4th or 5th time at this point. Once we hit the elevator, head on down and then up to this area up here, which will take us into the cave. It looks pretty similar to every other area we've traveled to, but this is actually the cave area of the game. Heading on through the first door, there's plenty of hunters waiting for you to kind of come through and try to snack on you best possible, so try to do our darndest to take them out and avoid them, of course. It's pretty easy also to get turned around in here and accidentally miss one of the ways that we needed to go, so I ended up going a little bit of a circle here as I meant to go down in this room, which will lead us to what is normally the Enrico room. Here we get the other crank, and now we can head back to the very first room of the cave. Once we're here, we're going to head over to this left side and use the crank on this portion of the wall, the new one we got, and this will allow us to go past this part. In here, we have one of the 2 giant boulders, which actually do work in this game. It will chase you down, so quickly run back and go into the little crevice to avoid getting hit by the giant boulder. Once the boulder has rolled on through, there is a hunter waiting there. Go inside here, and you'll have to deal with what normally would be the giant spider, but here we just have a couple of other little spiders walking around, nothing too viciously. You do have to use the knife though in order to get through the door, and as soon as you go through that door, you're in a big room with a bunch of the little tiny snakes, so be careful, just avoid them at all costs. Once in the next hallway, we're going to head up and around here, which is the location of another one of the things we can use that crank on. Use it, and that will open up this passageway down here, which we can then avoid the other gigantic boulder. Once the boulder has passed, run to where the boulder was and pick up the item there if you want to. That is one of the Modisc. Like I said, I won't be getting all the Modisc, but also by doing this will open up this room so that we're then able to go inside and move the statue around and push it onto the little switch, and that will allow us to get the object there. But unfortunately, my inventory is full because I picked up the Modisc, so we're going to run on down, and thankfully there is a safe room all the way on the opposite end of the room with the little snakes. So we, of course, can save if you want to, as well as dump off any of the extra items, and there's some other stuff here, health, all that other good stuff. So clean up your inventory, whatever you would like, and then head back and make sure that you pick up the item from that room we were just in. Once we have that item, which is one of the other metals that we need, we now have both metals, and it's time to head out of the cave system and now head to the final area of the game, which is the laboratory of the game. Go up here and put both of the metals in the correct spots, and that will open up the area so that we can go on down to the lab. Now, once we are in the lab, we can grab the map here if you want to. Then on the next floor, there's the other map, so you can grab that as well if you need to. This is also the room that has the item box for us to use if we need it for the lab itself. Start off by running down this hallway. There are some zombies here. Down here, now this is the big hallway that normally would end up containing naked zombies for the first time, though in this version it's just your normal, typical zombies. After taking out a few of the zombies, go into this room right here, which is the computer room. Then be sure to use the computer. It actually brings up an actual computer screen thing with a keyboard. And this is where we'll have to enter the information. You want to enter in John first and then Ada, which is of course the username and password. You'll then be able to unlock the B2 and B3 floors. The password for B2 is mole, just like it is in the original Resident Evil. And of course B3 doesn't have a password, you can instantly unlock that. Once that has all been taken care of, head back on up the staircase we took to get down here, and then head into the room which is the projection room. Be sure to go over here and grab the key that we're going to need. And outside here, this is a location of another one of those modiscs. If you want to grab it, you can, but we're not going to be using them like I mentioned. I'm going to go back and kind of drop things off into the item box before heading back down the stairs. Once back on down here, head all the way into the lower right corner, which is the location of this door, and head on through. Now right there, of course, is another one of the safe rooms that are located in the labs. Up is where the elevator that will take us to Tyrant is, but first we have to go into this room where the chimeras are. Now these guys are pretty vicious, but thankfully because of the way they move really slowly and awkwardly, and it's very easy to actually maneuver around them. Make sure that you turn on the power, though, for the machinery first. If you run into one of the chimeras, though, just keep firing and hopefully you'll be able to hit them. They have a really weird-looking sprite. Like, they're already weird-looking in normal Resident Evil, but they're really weird-looking in this game in particular. If you do have to take them out, though, thankfully the shotgun, especially with the ammo that we have on it, will be able to take them out. But like you can see, they damage you quite heftily, so you have to be very careful. Once we have activated that thing, though, head down through this room and into the room where it says the location of the computer, which will reactivate the power for the elevator. Once that has been activated, head on back through to a couple of rooms, and we're going to go down and get ready to take on the Tyrant for the first time. Stop by this save room, though, first, definitely, and be sure to use any of the items. This is one of those first aid sprays, so I'm definitely going to use that. That's the only other item I really need to use. Go up here and use the elevator. Now, here's the cutscene with Barry and Wesker. You find out, Barry was being blackmailed, basically, and all that good stuff. And Wesker reveals his evil plan and Umbrella and all that good stuff before heading into the lab room below. Run up to the computer and activate it, which will cause Tyrant to run out, and he's of course extremely fast, so it's really hard, if impossible, to run away from him or anything. When you do fight him, though, just keep mashing the attack button with whatever gun you're going to be using, especially the shotgun or one of the more powerful weapons if you have it. Use it, take him out. Once he's done, head on back through. Now, I definitely recommend saving at this point, because the final fight is difficult. You get a rocket launcher to use against Tyrant, but it takes all of the shots to kill him, and if you don't bring any extra health items or anything like that, it can be very difficult to take out Tyrant. So, of course, I recommend saving a lot during this game anyway. It crashes all the time, so be very careful when it comes to that kind of stuff. But either way, we're going to run through these hallways, pick up the last item needed in order to activate the final elevator, and then head up and get ready to fight Tyrant. Not much of a strategy I can give on him, though. Just be sure to heal if necessary, and just make sure you land all of the shots against him. Once up here, you'll get the flare. Go to the helicopter pad, use the flare, Tyrant burst onto the scene. Be sure, though, that you're near the location of the center here, because you need to pick up that rocket launcher before Tyrant hits you, or else you're going to be screwed and you won't be able to beat him. Use all the rockets, and once he's done, sit back and enjoy the ending to Resident Evil on the NES. So as you can see in the ending, Chris is there anyway. It's the screenshot of Jill leaning her head on Chris's shoulder as they're leaving the mansion. So like I said, the mode disc and all are involved in the game, but I'm not even sure if that ends up changing the ending at all, or do you end up getting the same one. This is an extremely interesting bootleg. In fact, Resident Evil was originally also supposed to be ported over to the Game Boy Color, but that didn't end up happening. So this bootleg is just one of those very intriguing things. There's a bootleg also for the likes of Final Fantasy VII, making that into like an NES-style game. So it's just a really kind of curiosity, and one of those things I've been wanting to do for a long time, and so I hope you guys definitely enjoyed watching me play through it. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up this episode of Play It Through. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a thumbs up or commenting down below. If you enjoyed this, be sure to check out the playthrough I recently did for Gargoyle's Quest on the Game Boy, or if you want something a little bit different, I've been counting down my top 10 favorite horror games from each generation during the month of October. You can click my 5th gen list by clicking the video on the left side. Of course, I also need to thank all the members of my Patreon. Without your guys' continued support, I wouldn't be able to keep doing what I'm doing, so thank you all so much for that amazing and awesome support. Thank you everybody for checking out this video, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.